Alright guys, yes, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel Football Therapy with me, your host Jan. I hope you're doing well, mate. I really do hope that. We're on the sofa, we're doing relaxed content, a relaxed format. This is your comments, an opportunity for me to connect to my viewers, my subscribers, the Football Therapy community. Thank you to all of you. You can obviously join the gang by subscribing and hitting the bell, and if you want to support the content, please do drop a like. But this is a very simple format of content, new series. I sit in here in my living room, a little bit more chilled out than the office. I go through your questions and comments which you post on the Football Therapy community page, which of course is just on the YouTube channel, the Football Therapy YouTube channel. You click on the community tab, and it's where I post things there, and you reply with your comments and or questions. And then it's just an opportunity for me to basically, refer to some talking points, but they are provoked by you, really. And of course, you get to feel like you're a part of the content, which is great. And then you obviously get to hear me answer questions from other people that perhaps you would have asked yourselves. So wicked. Welcome. Obviously, as well, I'd always urge you, if you do want to connect with me, to follow me on the social medias at Football Yannick on Instagram. Alright, mate, so I'm going to open the community tab now and go to your responses, and we're going to see what you guys are saying. And hopefully I can offer some insight, or at least just deliver my opinion that you guys will find interesting. So, at Oren Woodward asks, with all this excitement around Chelsea at the moment, what are your expectations for the next 2 to 3 years, both in trophies and performances? Well, let's start with performances. Oh, I get a little bit relaxed here. This is nice. Trophies is such a hard one to talk about. Might put my leg up. Is this a little bit too erotic? Are we going too much? Oh, I suppose you can't see it. It's a little bit only, Jans. I'd probably say it's so hard to call with trophies. And that's chiefly because of Manchester City, Guardiola, and Haaland. The Triforce of Evil. So it's really hard to tell at this point for any club like Arsenal, Arsenal, United, Chelsea, winning any form of trophy is pretty big. But let's talk about performances, because we've done kind of like the opposite in recent years. We've won certainly the big trophy in the Champions League. But even these years with Tuchel, where we won the Club World Cup and the Super Cup, there wasn't this like potent identity. Of course, the early stages of Tuchel, we were just so hard to score against. Like, our expected goals against was just absolutely incredible how low it was. So in terms of performances, I just expect identity. I expect high octane Pochettino football. Like the same reason why Manchester United fans for so long wanted to get Poch in. I was never really a massive fan of Poch, but the more, I know this is like the mental gymnastics that football fans do, but the more I think about our particular squad, he just seems so perfect. And now we got him in, it looks good. Do you know what I mean? So there is that. So trophies, 2 or 3 years, I just think it's going to be so hard to challenge for the Premier League. I think we'll be much better. We might get a cup, but the performances, like Chelsea, will just look like a really devastating team again. And look like we can actually do bits. So that answers your question. Okay. A bowl of spaghetti asks, your video are a part of my daily routine. I couldn't imagine a day without listening to that sweet bell, baby. Thanks, mate. On a serious note, now we have Caicedo over the line, feeling that we need at least one more forward to help out the Nkunku void. What do you think? Well, David Ornstein says don't sleep on Chelsea. Whether that's a forward like a striker coming in, or if that is an Elise/attacking midfielder, I think, probably one more. Because when you're sort of relying on Chukwuemeka as a number 10, maybe we're lacking a bit. And that's maybe doing him a disservice because he's getting better. But yeah, I think we'll probably go for one more. Ethan Walsh says, love the content, bro, the positivity. Thank you, mate. How long do you see the Poch era at Chelsea being? And what would you say are realistic and satisfying targets for him at the club? God, it's so hard trying to speculate on a Chelsea manager's tenure. How long is it going to be? Well, we know these new owners don't blink. And they didn't blink for a long time on Potter, even though he didn't even last 3/4 of a season, I guess. But it was bad, and it was getting more and more evident he was just the wrong choice. So they will, and like, you know, the Dodgers had a coach or has a coach, general manager or whatever for like a decade. So these Blue Coat owners will want to keep Pochettino for a long, long time. It's just so hard as a Chelsea fan to speculate. Like, I don't know, imagine if he lasts, like, even like, if it's not like a decade, if it's like 5 years, that's like a record. Certainly in the Premier League era, which is just incredible. So, I mean, I really couldn't say how long and what would be a satisfying targets for him at the club. Well, they will want to win the league while he's here. They want to constantly qualify for the Champions League, which is getting harder and harder because of the likes of Newcastle and, you know, Brighton and Brentford getting better, and it's, you know, just the other big clubs. But they will say, look, eventually Pep, there will be, and that's another thing, they'll be backing Guardiola to leave before Pochettino leaves. No, you don't think of it like that. You know, if Guardiola like finally has enough, then they'll be looking for a league title certainly. At Show Castillo asks, Shoja Castillo, excuse me, what goalkeeper should we consider now Kepa's gone? I'm absolutely not the foggiest, because I think it will be a second team goalkeeper on lower wages. So I mean, I really couldn't I really couldn't say. I'm sorry, you guys have to let me know in the comments who you think we should get as a second goalkeeper. Are we winning the title? Asks Mason De Beer. What would be a good season for us? A good season for us would be top 5. Now remember, 5th place, there's a 50% chance, I think, that 5th place will give you a Champions League place this season because of the new format next season, that comes in next season. So doing what Liverpool did last season and ending 5th would have actually got them Champions League this season. So that would be a successful season. No, I don't think we're winning the title. I think, I don't know, it's just Man City at a different level, aren't they? At Rava, excuse me, I can't pronounce his name. Ravatai asks, what do recent injuries and purchases say about our formation plans and statement of intent? Who stands to win and lose as a result? Well, this is tricky. To stands to lose, you have to think about Wesley Fofana, especially with Axel Disasi scoring on his debut and looking just like quite good. He didn't start amazing, but he looks pretty darn good, Axel Disasi. Well, it just shows Chelsea are done with taking passages, you know, and you know, like maybe Cucurella will go, still talk about that, and then maybe we'll have another like Malo Gusto type on the left behind Chilwell, because the wing-backs, the full-backs, but wing-backs of course against Liverpool, they're so integral to Pochettino's system. We said this before, we're saying it again. Not only are they so important systemically, there is captain and vice-captain. Says a lot, really. And they're like the experienced heads who won the Champions League at Chelsea, which is mad to say. I don't know. I think with the new side, Malo Gusto doesn't mean Reece James is screwed. I think it protects him. I think he probably welcomes the addition of Malo Gusto. And with formations, I don't think, oh look, people are speculating what's in the future because we played a back three. All I think, this is, again, I'm speculating. All I think that means is we've got it in our locker for when we want it, right? But if anything, Moises Caicedo is just further testament to the desire to play a 4-2-3-1, because he will unleash the ability to do that better, I think. This is a good question from Rory Asori. With all these signings we have right now, do you think the upcoming winter transfer window would be a quiet one for us? Well, that would be a first under the Todd Bowley Clear Lake Capital Blue Co era, because we've spent so much ruddy money in every transfer window. That's a tough one, man. We could, like, if there's still people lingering, like Ziyech, because you think, we've got to get Lukaku out. And there's, of course, links to Tottenham. If there's a big story happens soon, I'll do a Chelsea news video on that, so keep it locked for that. It really depends on what we finalise this summer, doesn't it? Like, if we get Elise, and God knows if we get a striker, and then you really are, unless there's an injury, really tough to find a reason to do January business, especially with the return of Nkunku coming in around then as well. back into the team probably just late December, January. I don't know. It really depends on how well Sterling does, and Sterling did all right against Liverpool. Like, you know, he had an absolutely terrible preseason. I mean, he got into really good shape and fitness in preseason, which ultimately that's what preseason's about. But worried a lot of people in terms of his performances. But he looked better. It's still so early to say, isn't it, after the first game week? But it's hard to imagine Chelsea not under these owners not doing a lot of business. But that surely is their target eventually, to not just constantly spend money. And they've made a lot of money as well. I just want to say at this point as well, obviously there's going to be a lot of questions. And as this series develops, what I might start doing is, if I can't answer everyone's question, is I might answer the question with the most likes or something. Is that fair? Anyway, let's keep going. Not a question, but not a football question, that's alright. But I'm curious to know, have you noticed any patterns of viewing figures, which is on YouTube, i.e. transfer season, do they end up going up and down when Chelsea performing badly? Second question for Mia, what's your favourite? What cable is your favourite? Why is your cable? Well, Mia's not in here, but she doesn't have a preference for cables and wires. She'll chew whatever's going. There was a time when I was playing my gaming PC, like some FPS, in my office, and I let her sit on my lap because she was just wanting. This is when she was tiny, when I still let her in, and I thought she was being good, and I heard this like this weird sound in my headphones, and she just chewed through the headphones wire, and I just heard this horrible like static, and it died, and it cost loads of money to replace it. So I started kicking her out of the office. Viewing figures, yeah, it's weird because I'm quite like a comment. Here she is now. Speak of the devil. I react to news and I commentate on the sort of like transfer stories. So that's probably more for me. I'm not a sensationalist like, these ruddy players, like shouty. So I'm not so theatrical and reactive, so people come and watch me when we lose. Although people are upset when their team lose and they want to mirror that. They want to see that emotion in content creators. And I don't do that. I've always been a little bit more, I don't know, methodical and analytical, which people don't often like. Come on, Mia, come up here. Good girl. Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to get more views in the season for match reviews and stuff, but people would just prefer the other content creators. I used to do really well on that in the early years now. We're sort of like 4 or 5 years into YouTube. But people prefer... George obviously kills it with the 6 things he learns. He absolutely locked that down, which is pretty impressive by him. But yeah, even like Nini and Eunice, you know, they get a lot more views than me, but that's okay, you know. What I'm sort of happy about is when I speak to my viewers and subscribers, they're just a really cool bunch of people. I feel like they're just nice people that perhaps aren't, and I'm not suggesting those other guys do get this, but some YouTubers, they get high views. People just click on it for like dopamine hits rather than like an interaction with, or a feeling like they're getting an interaction with someone they like. So that's kind of like humbling. And you know, I'm lucky to pay my bills with YouTube anyway. But there certainly fluctuates, and for me, yes, the transfer window is more rather than in season. Michael Lee asks, do you think Modric will come good and be able to cement his place in the starting 11? None of the managers he's played under Chelsea seem to have fancied him. Well, there's a lot of stuff to consider with Modric. He is young, firstly. He's not like, you know, I don't know, culturally he doesn't seem like, he seems very dedicated, and there seems like a bit of isolation with him. Chilwell's put his arm around him. You've got to remember, dude, what's happening with his country, it must be so harrowing and unsettling. So maybe he's just not ready to give everything, but the raw potential is, you know, profound, it's biblical. And I think someone like Pochettino will get it out of him, you know. And yes, I think he will become a starter. There's this recent story that Chelsea were offered Neymar, but they wanted to protect Modric, which is pretty telling. You know, although Neymar would break the wage structure and, you know, yada, 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 yada. So yeah, it's interesting. Let's go on. Sir EEF asks, with Caicedo already signed and Labia close to follow, do you worry about not taking the chances to add some experience and or leadership to the squad? Also, wasn't the signing for Labia unnecessary because of Ugochukwu. What do you think happens now to Santos? So Ugochukwu, I think he was always going to go on loan. I mean, it hasn't been done yet, has it? But it was suggested even by Poch that he was going to go to loan to Strasbourg. I think we were keeping him around until we did Caicedo and Labia. But do not be surprised if Ugochukwu now goes to Strasbourg on loan. Bearing in mind, we saw him come on at Liverpool because we don't have Caicedo or Labia, so he was being utilised then. Strange to see him and not Santos, but I think he's of a different build and profile that served us in that game. I'm not worried for Santos because Chelsea were desperate to get him in the team for a long time. You know, the sporting directors, he looked good in pre-season. The thing is though, right, the starting pivot will be Enzo and Moises, right? And then after that, with 5 substitutions, you will need options. So Labia has got Premier League experience and it's demonstrated the ability and the numbers and, you know, whatever the scouts saw in Premier League football for them to go, yep, he's the one. He's who we like. You know, the ceiling is apparently very high on Labia. Joe Shields loves him. So I think it's okay. The leadership thing, they've probably thought about the character of players, but they're looking for leadership from Sterling, Chilwell, Reece. You know, we're keeping Thiago Silva there just behind them, which is offering like leadership. Of course, I guess, I don't know if Labia is French speaking as a Belgium international. I mean, some of them don't speak French, do they? But, you know, should Leslie have stayed around or whatever, he can speak French to players and be that leader behind them. And I don't know, I feel like it's lacking a bit, but it's okay. The leadership, we've got such a group of leader-like coaches in Pochettino and his staff. They really, really integrate with the players and offer them the paternal stuff they need. That I think it's okay. That the on-the-pitch stuff, they just let them express themselves. I think in this scenario it's okay, but I understand the question, and it's been a very big talking point. And by the time, you know, Thiago Silva goes next season, the other players are a year older, you know. At Omo Solasso Bajo, come on, man. Short ats, please, here. Hey, mate, question. Best formation to utilise with the current squad? 4-2-3-1, especially now we've signed Moises Caicedo. Brewer versus Jackson, who gets to start if both fit? You'd have to say Jackson. I know Brewer looks good in the Prem. Brewer is really, really good at running 1v1, but Jackson shows you can combine. But this Brewer's still, the ceiling and the idea of how good he is still like profound, man. Do you know what I mean? Like people, Chelsea as a club think Brewer, the ceiling is ridiculous. So we'll have to see, but you'd have to say right now if both fit, Jackson. People are talking about Jackson, you know. And also, he played out wide before, so he can let midfielders come inside and stuff, and it just seems better. 3, are the long-term contracts going to come back to bite us? Well, that's the risk. I can't answer that question, I'm afraid, because they'll say no, they're protecting their assets long-term. We're not the first people to do it. Cesc Fabregas was on a really long contract years and years ago. Isn't it Saul Niguez on like a 9-year contract? Atletico have done it to a couple of players. La Liga's done it before. You know, it's not a new thing, Emir. So, I don't think so. I mean, it's a risk, but the thing is also, with inflation and performances, you know, they're on really relatively modest wages, and there'll probably be clauses in there to increase their wages. Here she is. Meow, 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 meow. There'll probably be clauses to increase their wages along the way. But, you know, if you keep them on modest wages into year 6 and, you know, more money in the Premier League, inflation, then you're, like, laughing that these players are on, you know, not bleeding you dry like, you know, Kepa and everyone else that we've tried to get rid of. So it's really, really interesting. It can go both ways, but I understand them taking the risk, essentially. I endorse it, man. I endorse it. Okay. Right. Let's read a couple more. There is quite a lot more. Like I said, I'll probably have to go through the most liked ones in the future. I think we've done his question, another question from him before, so let's move on. At Hoss394 says, I'd like to get your thoughts on the youth project. As for me, the purpose and the strategy is to develop young players cheaply into stars, but we seem to be buying young players for massive prices and we're spending loads. You have no experience and no resale value. It's not about resale value though. I don't want to be selling the club. Even the Brazilian kids are huge risks when they're signed for 20 million-ish. Bearing in mind, they don't want to do this in the future, the Enzo and Caicedo situation. To them, they see, we've bought them now, we've secured the long-term first-team current squad Chelsea midfield. But this is why they're doing the satellite clubs. They want to buy Strasbourg, they want to buy a Brazilian club, they want to buy a Portuguese club, they want to buy a Belgian club. So they get these players for 5 to 15 million and then funnel them to Chelsea, probably for like 30 million. So, you know, it doesn't look like there's any funny business, but not 100 million. So that's why they want to protect themselves with that. And then the youth project, I guess, is kind of going to put them in these clubs, and really it's just really intelligent, sensible, long-term planning for in terms of business, because you'll have the assets for cheaper. You're creating places and elements that will give you these assets for a lot cheaper, bring them in, and it should pay dividends in 4, 5, 6, 10 years long term, and you'll be spending a lot less money, and you will just have the available talent to come to you. You'll have success, you'll have, you know, talent factories essentially, and it's just empire expansion. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so I'm not really concerned. It's a waste of money with how much we've spent at the moment, but it kind of feels like a necessary evil, and you would hope that they've accounted for that long term. Right, let's do one more. Let's have a look then. Let's answer this one because it's on the same sort of thing. At Tom Porter asks, who do you think will be in the project's 2030 squad? Right, probably not Chilwell, just about Reece James, I'd say. You'd have to say both Moises and Enzo will still be playing, because at the same time, we like young players, but, you know, if they stay fit and if they get an amazing relationship, you have to look at like Real Madrid, that Galactico team of like players in their 30s, just winning relentless amounts of Champions Leagues because they just know how to play with each other. The Chelsea ownership, Blueco, will have to look at that and be like, yeah, we'll keep them together. So Andre Santos, Moises Caicedo, Enzo, probably not Axel Disasi because he's 25, but Benoit Badiashile, Wesley Fofana, Malo Gusto, because he's only 21. Probably, even though he's 25, Robert Sanchez, because he's on a 7-year deal, and goalkeepers play into their 30s, provided they're still playing well. You don't need a young goalkeeper. You need a good technical goalkeeper, and he can offer experience to the back. So maybe Rob Sanchez, that's a bit of a shout. Nico Jackson, well, the thing is, both Jackson and Breuer, they fit the profile, the age profile, but will they be in the squad and will they make it? You know, Breuer represents a pure profit sale somewhere down the line if he's not cutting it. And Jackson was a relatively low outlay. And then again, you have to say, like, is Noni going to do the business? I probably think Angelo Gabriel will come back and do it. He does look very good. If he plays a full season at Strasbourg, scores a bunch of goals and assists, and then gets a pre-season, you know, next summer. He already knows Pochettino. He already knows the squad. He had the summer transfer, the summer pre-season tour. He'd be a good shout as well. Look, there's loads of other questions. Thank you for asking them. Let me know what you think of this series down in the comments. Please do drop a like and subscribe, and I'll read your responses on this. And yeah, I enjoy doing this kind of content. I'll probably only do it like once a week. So keep an eye out for it. And thanks, guys. Peace.